Australia has had a very surprising history in space. We've been involved in the space business for a very long time. In the last episode, The Space Down Under, I found Australia was the third nation in the world to build and launch a satellite to reach low Earth orbit in 1967. Okay, it may have been launched on someone else's rocket, but it's still an outstanding achievement regardless, as it launched from Australian soil right here, and as far as I know, there have been no others since. There may also be a slight point of contention between us and Canada, but I'm pretty sure it was us, and we can rightly claim the title to being the third nation to reach low Earth orbit. Maybe? Hi, I'm Josh Keegan, and welcome to episode 2 of The Space Down Under, where I shine a light on Australia's space industry, but also on our surprising history in space. In this particular episode, I'm taking a very close look at our involvement over the decades with a top 10 list of historical and not quite so historical missions Australia has been involved in through the Deep Space Network. In the last episode, it was one of my very early videos that I've done, and each time I look at it, I kind of cringe. This one promises to be a lot better. Tiny bit better. However, I will apologise up front for my horrible pronunciation of names. If you're new here, please click on the subscribe button below. And while you're here, take a moment to check out my Patreon page on patreon.com/Josh Keegan. There's a lot to get through, seriously. It's a lot. I'm even thinking about putting in an intermission somewhere, probably about halfway. So grab a cup of coffee, or at least your favourite beverage, and let's get started. In the last episode, I took a very brief look at some of the missions Australia has been involved through with the Deep Space Network, including supporting the first interstellar mission, the Mariner 2, as it raced past Venus, and of course the absolutely iconic Apollo 11 mission to the Moon. Australia's own Parkes Observatory captured the very first moments of Neil Armstrong stepping down onto the lunar surface, relaying those iconic images and words to a global audience.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The Parkes Observatory is run by Australia's very own CSIRO, or the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation. The CSIRO also manages the day-to-day operations of multiple telescopes around the country as part of Australia's National Telescope Facility. These facilities include the Telescope Compact Array located in Narrabri in New South Wales, the Parkes Observatory located in Parkes, New South Wales, the Mopper Observatory located in Coonabarabran, New South Wales, the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder located near Buladi in Western Australia, some 315 kilometres northeast of Geraldton, and the Canberra Deep Space Communication Complex, which is part of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL. With that last one, you can actually see our involvement during missions, when live images are transmitted from mission control screens showing the Deep Space Network stations right around the world, including those receivers in Canberra. Then there is the live view that you can access anytime, where you can actually see which spacecraft we are communicating with at any time. The Canberra Deep Space Network has a total of 4 working antennas. The DSS-43 has a diameter of 70 metres and has been operating since 1972. DSS-34 is a bit smaller, with a diameter of 34 metres and has been in operation since 1997. The DSS-35 is 34 metres in diameter and is the second youngest, starting operations in 2014, and DSS-36 is 34 metres in diameter and is the youngest, starting operations in 2016. Our involvement with the Deep Space Network with NASA has allowed us to participate in some of the most historic missions helping to bring some of the biggest scientific discoveries to the world, and some of the coolest firsts for interstellar spacecraft. A little bit more on that later. To get a clear understanding of exactly what we have supported over the decades of involvement, I have been working closely with Quokka Space, and we have compiled a list of the top 10 missions Australia has supported over the decades. Quokka Space is worth checking out. I'll put a link below. So let's get this party started. Number 10, the Cassini-Huygens, a collaboration between NASA and the European Space Agency, or ESA. The Cassini-Huygens was launched in October 1997 and consisted of both the Cassini orbiter and the Huygens lander. Cassini-Huygens entered into orbit around Saturn on the 1st of July 2004, with the Huygens lander separating from Cassini on the 25th of December 2004, Christmas Day. Huygens landed on Saturn's moon Titan on the 14th of January 2005, the first landing on a moon other than Earth's own moon. Huygens was actually designed to survive long enough to ascend to Titan and had no more than 3 hours worth of battery life, most of which was planned to be used during the descent. Engineers expected only to get around 30 minutes of data from the surface. Instead, Huygens managed to get a whopping 90 minutes of time on the surface of Titan, surviving a temperature of 93.8 degrees Kelvin, relaying scientific data and images back to Earth. There were many unknowns about whether or not Huygens would land on the ground surface of Titan or be the first spacecraft to land in an ocean on the surface of another world. Huygens was actually purposefully designed to survive on land or a liquid surface. During its descent and 90-minute stay on Titan, Huygens managed to reveal stunning details including oceans made of hydrocarbons, a shoreline fogs of thin methane, and a clay surface described by one scientist similar to creme brulee. Either it was really like that, or the scientist was just hungry. The Cassini orbiter, on the other hand, lasted much longer than its probe, and continued to orbit Saturn until September 15, 2017. As per mission requirements, Cassini took its final dive into Saturn, ending its mission and observations some 13 years later. During the time Cassini was orbiting Saturn, it managed to collect some of the most important scientific observations about Saturn, its moons, and its rings, significantly and vastly extending our knowledge of the system. There are wonderful and stunning image repositories on both the ESA and NASA websites to look through. I will place links to these sites below in the comments, and you can spend a few hours browsing through the vast stores of information collected by both agencies. Number 9, Rosetta, launched by the European Space Agency in March 2004. Rosetta, along with its little lander Philae, not only visited but landed on comet P67 Churyumov-Gerasimenko on the 14th of November 2014. P67 is much easier. I'm sticking with P67, trust me. Signals from Philae were lost 2 days later as its battery power ran out, as it had landed in shadow and was unable to recharge. Communications were briefly restored with Philae in June and July of 2015, but due to diminishing solar power were turned off on the 27th July 2016. Eventually, Rosetta 2 suffered a loss of signal in September 2016 as comet P67 took it further from the sun, decreasing the amount of sunlight on its solar panels. The world absolutely fell in love with the plight of little Philae, who for a brief moment became the little lander that could. But also for providing the most beautiful and mind-blowing videos I think anyone has ever seen from the surface of P67. Yep, this is footage from the surface of a comet. Number 8, Hayabusa 1 and 2, both developed by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA. Hayabusa 1 arrived at the Itokawa asteroid in November 2005 and landing to collect samples of grains of asteroidal material to return to Earth on the 13th of June 2010. Despite the design of Hayabusa 1 to never land on the Itokawa asteroid, it did, and stayed sitting on the surface for 30 minutes. Hayabusa 1 also carried a tiny mini-lander called Minerva, which was short for Micro Nano Experimental Robot Vehicle for the asteroid. Unlike Hayabusa 1, Minerva was lost to space due to signal timing issues, escaping Itokawa's minute gravitational pull and subsequently being lost to space. Hayabusa 1 returned to Earth, releasing its re-entry capsule carrying its precious asteroidal cargo, experiencing some 25 Gs on re-entry before landing under parachutes in Woomera, South Australia. That was right here, baby. Then there's the follow-up mission to Hayabusa 1, which is Hayabusa 2, a vast design improvement over Hayabusa 1. Hayabusa 2 arrived at the asteroid 162173 Raguyu on the 27th of June 2018, carrying a total of 4 rovers investigating the asteroid in situ to provide in-depth contextual information of the asteroid over a longer period of time. Minerva 221, yes, this is a second version of the one that was lost to space, is a container that deployed 2 rovers, Rover 1A, Hayabusa, and Rover 1B, Owl, on the 21st of September 2018. Both of these rovers work by hopping across the surface under the low gravitational field using torque generated by rotating masses within the rovers. That's right, to hop and move about the surface of an asteroid. There is also a Minerva 2 container that holds the Rover 2. The Minerva 2 also carried the Mobile Asteroid Surface Scout, or MASCOT. Much like its predecessor, it didn't complete its mission, failing to be released, which I guess is a little bit better than being lost to space. Hayabusa 2 itself created its own impact crater, dropping down to take a sample, which is stored in its re-entry capsule to return to Earth. After studying the Raguyu for the last 18 months, Hayabusa 2 has departed with its precious samples in November 2019 and is due to return to Earth again to Woomera in South Australia in late 2020. Seriously, if you live in South Australia, I'd be getting as close to Woomera as I can so I can see Hayabusa 2 coming through the atmosphere, as it will be spectacular! Regardless of whether the sample has actually successfully returned to Earth, this is one major achievement by JAXA. The mission is still active and you can follow along on Twitter and their YouTube channel for the latest updates. I hope nobody noticed. I got really excited then. Number 7. Mars Opportunity Rover. Launched in July 2003 and landing on Mars in January 2004. During Opportunity's lifetime, it managed to travel some 45.16 kilometers, lasting 14 years and 46 days, well beyond its initial planned 90 sol duration. Oppie, as it became fondly known, was finally declared dead in February 2019 after a massive planetary-wide dust storm in 2018, with Mission Control ordering Oppie to enter into hibernation mode on June 10, from which it would never recover. Interestingly and very sadly, over 1,000 command signal attempts were sent from August 2018 until the final declaration was made. The final 4 command signals to Oppie were sent from the 70-meter Goldstone Deep Space Telecommunications Complex in California, with the final communication attempts being handed off to Canberra to the Deep Space Communication Complex. The Deep Space Network and Australia kept NASA and JPL scientists connected to Oppie for over 14 years. Now remember, Oppie was only ever supposed to last for 90 sol duration. That's one hell of an engineering feat. Oppie also managed to provide some spectacular science, including a new hypothesis on whether or not there is water on Mars, and we all know now that there is, as well as providing the first atmospheric temperature profile of the red planet. Oppie also navigated its way to find its own heat shield impact site, and found the first ever meteorite discovered on Mars. Oppie also managed to capture the transit of Phobos across the Sun from the surface of Mars, providing the world with mind-blowing images from the surface of another world. This was then later replicated by another Martian rover in August 2013. I wonder which one that was. Number 6. Mars Curiosity Rover. Launched in November 2011, Curiosity landed inside the Gale crater on Mars on the 6th of August 2012. Rover's goals include an investigation of the Martian climate and geology, assessment of whether the selected field site inside the Gale crater has ever offered environmental conditions favourable for microbial life, including investigation of the role of water, and planetary habitability studies and preparation for human exploration. Curiosity landed using a crane to drop down to the surface after propulsively aerobraking through the Martian atmosphere. This video shows one of the coolest ways to land on another planet. Remember that other rover I was talking about? It was Curiosity, who managed to also get another set of images of Phobos crossing the Sun in August 2013, replicating Oppie's achievement, providing higher resolution and more frames of the crossing. Curiosity is still going even today and will soon be joined by a new rover due to launch later this year. The primary mission of the new Mars 2020 rover is to work out if humans are actually able to survive on the red planet and determine if Mars was ever habitable anywhere in its history, seeking evidence in the form of biosignatures. To do this, the rover will also be carrying a drone. The Mars Helicopter Scout, or MHS, has been created by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL, and has been designed to fly up to 5 times a day during a 30-day test campaign. The 1.8 kilogram drone will prove heavier than air autonomous flight is possible in the Martian atmosphere, and to prove the concept actually works. I don't know about you, but I'm a geek enough, and I will be following as closely as I possibly can with this one. At the time of recording, it must be noted that the new Mars rover has yet to be named, but I'm sure Australia will be providing ongoing communications through the life of the rover and its drone. Around about here is where I thought I'd actually insert an intermission. It's time for me to go get some refresher of coffee, probably some water. You probably need to clean your ears out from listening to me. Intermission, here we come. I need a drink.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Welcome back. Hi. Sorry, just having a coffee. Thanks for sticking around. We've got our last top 5 to go. Are we ready? Number 5, the New Horizons, launched in 2006 by NASA. The New Horizons craft is part of NASA's New Frontiers program, with a primary mission to complete a flyby study of Pluto, with a secondary flyby mission to study a Kuiper Belt object. Really got that wrong too. On July 14, 2015, New Horizons flew 12,500 kilometers above the surface of Pluto, making it the first spacecraft to explore the dwarf planet. Interestingly, it took until October 2016 for the last of the recorded data to be received here on Earth. And boy, did it deliver some of the most stunning images ever, revealing the actual heart of Pluto. New Horizons is still going now, having shot past Ultima Thule on January 2019 at a speed of 51,000 kilometers an hour, delivering exactly 14 images of the farthest object ever visited. Keep in mind, this was a massive feat given the uncertain actual location of Ultima Thule, and the speed of the New Horizons spacecraft. Data from New Horizons' visit to Pluto is still being interpreted even now, almost 5 years later. A closer examination of photos from around Pluto's equator has recently revealed a very jagged landscape, which is actually made up of frozen methane. The jagged structures are very similar to ice formations found here on Earth, called pentans, with a main difference. The ones found on Pluto are at least hundreds of meters tall. New Horizons will now head further into the Kuiper Belt as part of an extended mission to visit other ancient icy mini-worlds. Number 4, Voyager 1 and 2. Voyager 1 launched on the 5th of September 1977 as part of the Voyager program to study the outer solar system. Voyager 1 has operated for over 41 years and is still communicating with the Deep Space Network, even though it is 22 billion kilometers from Earth. 22 billion! It passed by Jupiter, Saturn, and Saturn's moon Titan before departing our solar system and entering interstellar space in 2012. Voyager 1 also managed to provide us with some of the most iconic images ever on the 14th of February 1990. Pale blue dot. This simple image was taken at the request of astronomer and author Carl Sagan, while Voyager 1 was about 6 billion kilometers from Earth, traveling at around 64,000 kilometers per hour. In 1994, Carl Sagan released his book Pale Blue Dot, commenting on the greater significance of the photograph and the future of humans in space.
From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives.
I'll place a link in the description below if you want to continue to hear the rest of this iconic speech. In February 2020, NASA released a beautiful remaster of the original image, with the Earth much clearer and much easier to pick out as compared to the original. In 2013, Cassini also captured its own version, but it was slightly different and a bit more modern, with Saturn posing in the foreground. Surprisingly, Voyager 1 was launched 16 days after its twin, Voyager 2, even though Voyager 1 passed into interstellar space much, much earlier. And while we're here, let's take a closer look at Voyager 2. Launched on the 20th of August in 1977, Voyager 2 took longer to reach Jupiter and Saturn due to the gravity assist trajectory. It passed by Uranus and Neptune, finalizing its mission in 1989 once it departed the Neptunian system. Voyager 2 also left our solar system for interstellar space on the 5th of November 2018. Voyager 2 is also still operating, and it has been for over 41 years, just like Voyager 1. However, it suffered an anomaly in January 2020 where its scientific instruments were turned off. Upon further investigation, Voyager 2 failed to execute a scheduled maneuver, rotating the craft through 360 degrees in order to calibrate its onboard magnetic field instrument. Not completing this maneuver on time meant that it left two systems that consumed relatively high amounts of power on at the same time. This overdrew the available power supply. The management software designed before Voyager left Earth in order to protect the spacecraft turned the scientific instruments off to make up for the power deficit. Engineers have managed to power the scientific instruments back on and are now working towards returning the craft back to normal operations. As of February 2020, Canberra's Deep Space Network and DSS-43 will be entering into a 10 months planned downtime later than usual to continue to support NASA's science team as they continue to check on the health of the spacecraft. Number 3. Mars Express, launched by the European Space Agency in 2003. Mars Express had a lander by the name of Beagle 2, which rather disappointingly failed to deploy after it landed on the surface. The Mars Express orbiter, which deployed Beagle 2 to the surface, is still in operation, taking high-resolution images and meteorological mapping of the surface, and has recently granted a mission extension until late 2020. Despite the failure of Beagle 2, the Mars Express orbiter has provided some of the most detailed images, including spying fractured ice sheets, evidence of rivers, and rippling ice and storms at Mars' North Pole. The most important discoveries have been around the discovery of water on the red planet. The Mars orbiter first discovered water ice as early as 2004 at the South Pole and has been discovering water ice and evidence that Mars was a once much wetter place. It also currently holds the record for being the second longest serving orbiter behind NASA's Mars Odyssey, launched in 2001. Number 2. Juno, launched on the 5th of August 2011 by NASA. Juno began a polar orbit of Jupiter on the 5th of July 2016, studying the massive giant, giving us stunning images on each peridrove pass, as well as a massive amount of scientific data. Juno has also managed to provide some of the most in-depth insights into the gas giant, especially Jupiter's Great Red Spot, a storm that has been raging since at least the 1800s. With each pass, Juno has uncovered that the Great Red Spot is subject to significant changes. Most importantly, it has been shrinking down from being able to fit 1.8 Earths inside down to a measly 1.3 Earths today. Most recently, in November 2019, Juno uncovered a new cyclone that has formed over the pole, usually dominated by just 6 cyclones. These cyclones are not small, with each roughly the size of the United States, with the newest member of the club measuring the size of Texas. Juno will eventually be deorbited into Jupiter's atmosphere somewhere in July 2021, 4 years after its initial 7-year mission plan, providing there aren't any more extensions and providing Juno continue to survive the extreme radiation from Jupiter. Until that time though, let's just take a minute to appreciate the small sample of images returned from the Juno mission, providing stunning and never seen before pictures of our giant protector in our solar system. Number 1. Apollo program, specifically the Apollo 11 landing on the moon in July 24, 1969. Without a doubt, the moon landing is the most easily recognisable from history, where Australia was deeply involved in communications with the Apollo 11 lander. The Parkes Observatory, in combination with the Honeysuckle Creek tracking station in Canberra, were in the perfect position to both record and transmit the moment Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon.
I'm going to step off the land now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
It was also a matter of Australia being directly in line at the time Neil decided to exit the lander. Another couple of hours and our involvement wouldn't have been quite as big due to the rotation of the Earth. When talking about the Apollo program, it is essential to include Apollo 13. Apollo 13 failed to reach the lunar surface and only managed to fly by when an oxygen tank exploded, crippling the service module, destroying any hopes of a landing.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main beam plus undervolt.
Roger, main B undervolt. Okay, stand by, 13. We're looking at it.
Australia provided ongoing communication support through the Deep Space Network during this harrowing 5-day mission for NASA and its astronauts. We're finished! We're finished! It's done! Did you make it this far with me? That's a huge top 10 list, and it's all thanks to Quokka Space. I may have made some slight changes to the list, but I hope no one noticed. If you're seeking a more comprehensive list rather than this top 10, please head on over to Quokka Space's site. I've placed a link below. I have found Quokka Space to be an absolute brilliant reference site containing loads of factual information, which cuts out a lot of inaccuracies I've found on other websites when researching this video. So there you have it. Australia has been involved in the space industry for a number of decades, and quite frankly, some of the information I found when researching this video has taken me completely by surprise, and I hope it has for you too. You may entirely disagree with a final assessment, and if you think it needs to be in a different order, place your own top 10 list into the comments below and let me know. I'm keen to find out. I think we can all agree though, Australia has been at the absolute forefront of missions to explore our own solar system, to produce some of the most jaw-dropping images I think we'll ever see in our lifetimes, and it's only going to get better with each upcoming launch. In the next video, I'll be taking a closer look at Australia's future in the global space industry, what the Australian space industry will look like today, and what the Australian space industry will look like in the year 2030. If there's anything you'd like to see under joshkeegan.com, please let me know in the comments below. If you work in the Australian space industry, I'd love to have a chat with you. Please reach out and get in touch. Please. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please hit subscribe. And if you like the content, please support me on Patreon. Your support on Patreon allows me to continue to delve more deeply into the space industry and Australia's involvement as an entire nation. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for making it this far. And remember, stay caffeinated.